The first name on the list died 3 days after the prediction. The second died 11 days later. The third was found floating in a reservoir outside Phoenix before anyone had even finished investigating the first 2 deaths. At first, nobody connected the cases. Then a federal analyst noticed something that should have been impossible. Every dead person had appeared on a classified government report generated by an artificial intelligence system called Oracle. And according to Oracle, none of them were supposed to die. They were supposed to become killers. October 2052. Washington, D.C. Rain hammered against the reinforced glass walls of the National Predictive Crime Center. Inside the auditorium, politicians, journalists, law enforcement officials, and technology executives watched a giant screen illuminate the dark room. The logo of Oracle appeared. A calm synthetic voice echoed through hidden speakers. Behavioral analysis initialized. The audience erupted into applause. For years, governments around the world had searched for ways to prevent violent crime before it happened. Most attempts had failed. Algorithms could identify patterns. They could calculate probabilities, but they could never predict individual human decisions with enough certainty to be useful. Until now. At least, that was what the creators of Oracle claimed. The system had been developed by Synnex Dynamics, one of the largest artificial intelligence companies in North America. For 8 years, researchers had fed it vast amounts of information: court records, psychological studies, school reports, employment histories, medical statistics, financial data, social media activity, geolocation records, everything legally available through public databases and government partnerships. The result was an intelligence system unlike anything that had existed before. Oracle didn't merely predict crime hotspots. It predicted people. Specifically, individuals at exceptionally high risk of committing future acts of extreme violence. The concept had terrified civil rights organizations. It had fascinated law enforcement agencies. And it had divided the public. Now, after years of secret testing, Oracle was finally being unveiled. Standing beneath the giant screen was Dr. Evelyn Ward, 52 years old. Sharp eyes. Gray hair tied into a neat knot. She was the project's chief architect. "The purpose of Oracle," she said, "is not punishment. It is prevention." The audience listened carefully. No one identified by the system is considered guilty of any crime. The statement appeared on the screen behind her. "Our goal is intervention before tragedy occurs." More applause. Television cameras flashed. Some people looked hopeful. Others looked deeply uncomfortable. Dr. Ward continued. During controlled testing, Oracle correctly identified 87% of individuals who later committed severe violent crimes. The room became silent. Even the journalists stopped typing. 87%. The number sounded impossible. A senator sitting in the front row leaned forward. "You're saying the system can predict murderers?" Dr. Ward hesitated. "No system can predict human behavior with complete certainty." The answer sounded carefully rehearsed. But Oracle identifies behavioral trajectories associated with future violence. The senator smiled. "So yes." The room laughed. Dr. Ward did not. 2,000 miles away, in Denver, Colorado, 27-year-old school custodian Nathan Mercer was eating dinner alone in a small apartment. The television showed coverage of Oracle's public launch. Nathan barely paid attention. He had worked all day. His knees hurt. He planned to sleep early. The announcement meant nothing to him. He was not a criminal. He had never been arrested. He paid taxes. He volunteered at a local animal shelter. His life was painfully ordinary. Yet at that exact moment, his name was appearing on a secure government server. Oracle had assigned him a classification. Level Red. Projected future violence risk, extreme. Probability of homicide offense within 5 years, 91%. Nathan Mercer had no idea. 3 weeks passed. The media couldn't stop talking about Oracle. News channels debated ethics. Experts argued over privacy concerns. Podcasters produced endless episodes discussing predictive policing. Some citizens praised the technology. Others called it a digital nightmare. Meanwhile, inside secure government facilities, analysts quietly reviewed Oracle's first operational reports. One analyst in particular had become obsessed with the system. Special Agent Daniel Reyes, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Age 41. Former homicide investigator. Known for skepticism. Reyes trusted evidence. He distrusted promises, especially promises made by technology companies. The first time he saw Oracle's predictions, he felt uneasy. The system generated lists, hundreds of names, thousands eventually, each accompanied by percentages, behavioral indicators, and projected timelines. No explanation seemed sufficient. The machine simply knew too much, or appeared to. Still, the statistics were impressive. Several individuals flagged during testing had indeed committed violent crimes later, enough to convince many officials that Oracle worked. Reyes wasn't convinced. He wanted proof. Real proof. Not percentages. Not marketing presentations. Evidence. Then something strange happened. A notification appeared in his inbox. Subject: Red list individual deceased. He opened it. Nathan Mercer. Cause of death: single gunshot wound. Location: abandoned industrial area outside Denver. Status: homicide investigation active. Reyes frowned. Nathan Mercer wasn't supposed to be dead. According to Oracle's timeline, he wasn't projected to commit murder for another 3 years. The case seemed unrelated. One death meant nothing. People died every day. Reyes archived the report and moved on until another alert arrived. 11 days later. Different state. Different victim. Different circumstances. Same pattern. Another individual identified by Oracle as a future killer. Dead. This time in Nevada. Official cause: apparent drowning. Again, the death occurred before the predicted violent offense. Reyes felt a knot forming in his stomach. Coincidence remained possible, but coincidences had limits. He requested additional files. The response came back quickly. Access denied. Classified. That irritated him. He filed another request. Denied again. Now he became interested. 2 months later, the third death occurred. The body was discovered by fishermen near a reservoir. Male. 34 years old. Blunt force trauma. No suspects. No witnesses. No obvious motive. Yet the victim's name appeared on Oracle's internal list. Exactly like the others. 3 future killers. 3 corpses. None had committed the crimes Oracle predicted. The probability of such a coincidence was tiny. Reyes knew it. Someone else knew it too. The person watched every development from a private terminal hidden deep inside Synex Dynamics headquarters. A pair of eyes scanned confidential reports, death certificates, police findings, federal communications. The observer never spoke, never reacted, only watched, and waited. On the screen, a new Oracle report appeared. Another name highlighted in red. Future homicide risk, 94%. Projected timeline, 18 months. The observer smiled, then copied the file. 3 days later, Daniel Reyes sat alone in his office after midnight. Rain struck the windows. Most employees had gone home. The building was nearly silent. A cold cup of coffee rested beside stacks of printed reports. He spread photographs across his desk. Nathan Mercer, Victor Lang, Robert Haynes. 3 dead men. 3 strangers. No apparent connection. Different backgrounds. Different states. Different lifestyles. Yet Oracle had selected all of them, and now all of them were dead. Reyes stared at the photographs. His instincts screamed that something was wrong. Not with the murders, with the prediction system itself. He opened a secure database and searched for every deceased individual who had appeared on Oracle's high-risk list. The query loaded slowly. Then results appeared. Reyes froze. There were 3 names. There were 7. 4 additional deaths had already been recorded. Nobody had noticed because the cases were scattered across the country. Different jurisdictions. Different investigators. Different circumstances. The pattern had remained invisible. Until now. A chill ran through him. Someone was finding Oracle's future killers and eliminating them, one by one, before they could become what the machine predicted, or before they could prove the machine wrong. Reyes didn't know which possibility frightened him more. Outside, thunder rolled across the Washington skyline. Inside the dark office, he opened a new case file. Title: Oracle Deaths. He had no idea that this investigation would soon become the most controversial criminal case in American history. Nor did he know that the next name on Oracle's list had less than 48 hours left to live. By the time the 8th death occurred, Agent Daniel Reyes no longer believed in coincidences. The victim was a 32-year-old truck mechanic from Oklahoma named Carl Denton. No criminal record, no known enemies, no significant debts, no apparent reason to be murdered. Yet Carl had one thing in common with the 7 dead individuals before him. Oracle had identified him as a future killer. The report had been generated 23 days before his death. Someone had found him first. The body was discovered in a dry creek bed outside Tulsa. The county sheriff initially believed it was a robbery. Carl's wallet was missing. His pickup truck had disappeared. The scene appeared straightforward, until federal analysts quietly informed local authorities that Carl Denton was connected to an ongoing classified investigation. Within hours, the FBI arrived. Daniel Reyes stood beside the yellow crime scene tape as wind swept dust across the barren landscape. The sun was rising. Its pale light revealed a body partially concealed beneath brush and loose dirt. Forensic teams moved carefully around the area. Reyes remained silent. He was no longer looking at individual murders. He was looking at a pattern. And patterns were dangerous, because patterns meant planning. Back in Washington, the Oracle Deaths Task Force was officially created. Its existence remained secret. Only a handful of senior officials knew it existed. The public still viewed Oracle as a revolutionary success. The government had no intention of revealing that people identified by the system were mysteriously dying across the country, especially because no one could explain how the victims were being selected. Oracle's predictions were classified. Access was tightly controlled. Every search, every report, every user, every download, everything was logged. At least it was supposed to be. Yet someone clearly possessed information that should have been inaccessible. Someone knew who Oracle was targeting, and someone was acting on that knowledge. 3 days after Denton's death, Reyes attended a meeting inside a secure conference room. Representatives from the FBI, Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and Synnex Dynamics sat around a long table. A giant screen displayed photographs of the dead. 8 faces stared back. The atmosphere felt heavy. Nobody wanted to say what everyone was thinking. Finally, Reyes broke the silence. "We have a leak." Several executives shifted uncomfortably. One of them, a Synnex vice president named Martin Hale, immediately shook his head. "That's impossible." Reyes looked at him. "Why? Our security protocols are among the most advanced in the world." People said the same thing about every major data breach in history. The room became quiet. Hale frowned. "Our systems haven't been compromised." Then explained the bodies. Nobody could. After the meeting, Reyes received authorization to examine Oracle's internal records. The approval came with strict conditions. He could only access designated servers. His searches would be monitored. Every file would remain classified. It wasn't ideal, but it was enough. For now. Synnex Dynamics headquarters occupied an enormous glass complex outside Seattle. The facility resembled a university campus more than a technology company. Landscape gardens, walking paths, modern architecture, artificial ponds. Everything projected calm efficiency. Reyes hated it immediately. Places that looked perfect usually hid something ugly. A security escort guided him through multiple checkpoints before bringing him to Oracle's operations center. The room looked surprisingly ordinary. Rows of workstations, engineers studying data, analysts reviewing reports. Nothing about it suggested the system was shaping the future of criminal justice. Then Reyes saw Oracle itself, or rather, the physical infrastructure supporting it. Beyond reinforced glass walls stood massive server arrays stretching across several rooms. Thousands of processors, countless blinking indicators. Enough computing power to analyze entire populations. The sight made him uneasy, because unlike a gun or a knife, this machine didn't kill people directly. It influenced decisions, and sometimes influence was more dangerous. Dr. Evelyn Ward met him personally. The lead architect appeared exhausted. Dark circles framed her eyes. Her movements lacked the confidence she had displayed during the public launch. "Agent Reyes." "Doctor." They shook hands. "You've reviewed the death cases?" She nodded. Everyone. And a long pause followed. Finally, she spoke. I don't understand them. The answer surprised him. You built Oracle. I built the model. She looked toward the server rooms. That doesn't mean I understand everything it does. Reyes studied her expression. She wasn't being evasive. She genuinely seemed disturbed. The following hours were spent reviewing access logs. Thousands upon thousands of entries. Employees opening files. Analysts generating reports. Researchers reviewing behavioral data. Nothing unusual appeared. At least not initially. Then Reyes noticed something strange. A series of report requests had occurred late at night. Always between 2 and 4 in the morning. Always from authorized accounts. Always targeting individuals later found dead. The requests appeared legitimate. Yet the timing bothered him. Most employees weren't working those hours. Reyes flagged the records. Who accessed these files? A technician reviewed the logs. Various personnel. Names. The technician hesitated. That's where things get strange. How strange. Some accounts belonged to people who weren't even in the building. Reyes looked up. What? We check security badge records. The technician swallowed. The users supposedly logged into Oracle from inside headquarters. But according to building access logs, they were at home. The room suddenly felt colder. Someone wasn't merely stealing information. Someone was manipulating the audit trails. That evening, Reyes sat alone in a temporary office reviewing personnel files. Nearly 5,000 employees worked for Synex Dynamics. Thousands more possessed indirect access through contractors and government partnerships. The suspect pool was enormous. Yet one detail continued bothering him. If the killer was eliminating future murderers, why? What was the motive? Revenge? Ideology? Vigilantism? Fear? None of the victims had committed crimes yet. At least none that anyone knew about. They were innocent under the law. Potential futures were not evidence. A prediction was not guilt. So why execute them? Unless a disturbing possibility entered his mind. What if the killer genuinely believed Oracle? What if someone had become convinced that every person on the list was destined to murder? In that scenario, the killings could be viewed as prevention, a twisted form of justice. The thought unsettled him, because history was full of people willing to kill for certainty, and Oracle provided certainty better than anything humanity had ever created. The next morning brought another death. This time the victim was a woman, 29-year-old Emily Cross, elementary school teacher, married, mother of one child, no criminal history, no known psychological disorders, no obvious warning signs. Yet Oracle had assigned her a 92% probability of committing homicide within 4 years. Now she was dead, killed in what appeared to be a staged traffic accident. The news hit Reyes hard, because unlike previous victims, Emily's profile felt impossible. Nothing about her suggested violence. Nothing. For the first time, he questioned Oracle itself. What if the system was wrong? What if its predictions were flawed? What if innocent people were being targeted because an algorithm had made mistakes? The implications were horrifying, and someone out there was treating those predictions as death sentences. Late that night, while reviewing Emily Cross's file, Reyes received an encrypted message. No sender, no identifying information, just a single line of text. He stared at the screen. Read it again, then again. The message said, Oracle doesn't predict killers. It creates them. Before Reyes could trace the source, the message vanished, automatically deleted, leaving only silence behind. For the first time since the investigation began, he felt genuine fear, because if the message was true, then the murders were only the beginning. Something far larger was happening, and somewhere inside Synex Dynamics, someone knew exactly what it was. Daniel Reyes barely slept. The anonymous message continued replaying in his mind. Oracle doesn't predict killers. It creates them. The sentence sounded absurd. A machine could analyze data. A machine could make predictions. But create murderers? That implied influence, manipulation, a chain reaction, something far beyond predictive software. And yet the message had arrived from someone with knowledge of the investigation, someone who wanted him to see something. The question was what? The following morning Reyes received a confidential briefing. Another individual had appeared at the top of Oracle's high-risk list. His name was Tyler Grant, age 26, resident of Sacramento, California. Occupation, warehouse supervisor. Married. No criminal record. No history of violence. No psychological treatment. Nothing unusual. At first glance, he looked like every other victim. The difference was simple. Tyler Grant was still alive. For now. Reyes immediately requested surveillance authorization. If someone was targeting Oracle's future killers, this might be the first opportunity to stop them. The request was approved within hours. A small team was assembled. The operation remained highly classified. Officially, Tyler Grant knew nothing. Unofficially, he had become bait. Sacramento greeted Reyes with gray skies and steady rain. The city looked ordinary. Traffic flowed through wet streets. People hurried between offices and coffee shops. Nobody knew a federal operation was unfolding around one warehouse supervisor. Tyler's life appeared painfully normal. Every morning, he left home at 6:45. Every evening, he returned before sunset. He visited the same grocery store, filled his truck at the same gas station. A predictable routine. Exactly the type of life that should never attract the attention of murderers or artificial intelligence. Yet Oracle had given him a 94% probability of committing homicide within 18 months, one of the highest scores in the system. Reyes spent 2 days reviewing Tyler's background. The deeper he dug, the stranger things became. There were no obvious warning signs, no violent incidents, no threatening behavior, no disturbing online activity. Nothing. The man looked harmless. Eventually Reyes contacted one of Oracle's behavioral analysts. Explain this. The analyst examined Tyler's profile, multiple converging indicators, such as stress factors. What stress factors? The analyst pointed toward the screen. Debt accumulation. Reyes frowned. The amount wasn't extraordinary. Many Americans carried debt. The analyst continued. Social isolation. Again, the evidence seemed weak. Tyler had friends, co-workers, family members. The analyst highlighted another category, escalating emotional instability. What does that mean? The analyst hesitated. It means the model detected patterns. What patterns? We don't always know. Reyes stared at him. The answer bothered him more than he expected. One of the most powerful predictive systems in history was effectively saying, "Trust us. The machine knows. No explanation required." That wasn't science. That was faith. The third day of surveillance produced the first anomaly. At 8:17 p.m., Tyler received a phone call. The conversation lasted less than 30 seconds. Immediately afterward, he appeared visibly disturbed. He left his house, entered his truck, and drove across town. An FBI team followed. The destination surprised everyone. A cemetery. Tyler parked near the rear entrance, sat inside the vehicle for almost 40 minutes, then left. No meeting, no contact, nothing. The behavior seemed meaningless until agents reviewed his records. Tyler's younger sister had died there 6 years earlier. A drunk driver had struck her vehicle. The case had devastated the family. Reyes stared at the report. A grieving brother visiting a cemetery did not look like a future serial killer. It looked human. That night another encrypted message arrived. Again there was no sender, no traceable source, only a single sentence. Look at the intervention reports. Reyes immediately searched the Oracle database. The term appeared repeatedly. Intervention reports. Thousands of them. He opened one, then another, then a third. As he read, his heartbeat accelerated. The documents described actions taken after individuals were flagged by Oracle. Some received counseling referrals. Others were monitored. Some were subjected to enhanced background reviews. Several lost employment opportunities. Others found themselves under increased scrutiny by financial institutions. Everything was technically legal. Everything was justified as preventative measures. Yet a disturbing pattern emerged. The moment Oracle identified someone as dangerous, their lives often began changing. Not because of crimes they committed, because of the prediction itself. The machine wasn't merely observing reality. It was influencing it. Reyes dug deeper. Case after case revealed similar outcomes. An individual flagged as high risk suddenly faced increased pressure. Friends became distant. Employers became cautious. Authorities became suspicious. Opportunities disappeared. Stress increased. Isolation grew. Anger followed. The effects weren't universal, but they existed, and they were measurable. The realization made his stomach tighten. What if the anonymous message was partially true? Not literally, not directly, but indirectly. What if Oracle's predictions pushed people toward the futures it anticipated? A self-fulfilling prophecy. The possibility was terrifying, because no one had intended it, and because it might already be happening. The next morning, Tyler Grant nearly died. The attack occurred at a highway rest stop outside Sacramento. A surveillance team witnessed everything. A black SUV entered the parking area. A masked individual exited, approached Tyler's truck, raised a suppressed handgun, and fired. 3 shots. 2 struck the windshield. The third missed completely. Tyler instinctively accelerated. His truck crashed through a fence and escaped onto the highway. The attacker fled seconds before federal agents arrived. For the first time, the killer had failed. The aftermath created chaos. Tyler was placed under protective custody. Federal authorities sealed the area. Forensic teams processed every inch of the crime scene. Most evidence was frustratingly limited. The shooter had prepared carefully. No fingerprints. No DNA. No witnesses able to provide a useful description. Only one clue remained. A fragment of paper discovered near the attacker's firing position. A small piece torn from a printed document. At first glance, it appeared insignificant. Then an analyst reconstructed part of the text. Reyes stared at the recovered words. His blood ran cold. The fragment originated from an Oracle prediction report. Tyler Grant's report. Someone wasn't simply accessing the database. Someone was carrying physical copies into the field. The leak was inside Synnex Dynamics. Or inside the government. Perhaps both. That evening, Reyes entered Tyler's secure holding room. The young man looked exhausted, confused, terrified. For days he had been watched without understanding why. Now someone had tried to kill him. He demanded answers. Reyes wanted to give them. Instead, he asked a question. Has anyone contacted you recently? Tyler hesitated, then nodded. 3 weeks ago. Who? I don't know. What did they want? Tyler looked away. The memory clearly unsettled him. They said my future wasn't fixed. Reyes froze. What exactly did they say? Tyler swallowed. They said I had been chosen. Silence filled the room. Outside the reinforced windows, rain tapped against the glass. For several seconds, neither man spoke. Finally, Reyes asked the question that had begun haunting him. Chosen for what? Tyler's face turned pale. To prove the machine right. Thousands of miles away, inside a secure server room hidden beneath Synnex Dynamics headquarters, a figure watched live surveillance footage from Tyler's protection detail. The failed assassination had complicated things, but not ruined them. Far from it. The next phase could still proceed. The figure opened a restricted Oracle directory, one inaccessible to nearly everyone in the company. Rows of classified files appeared. Hundreds of names. Hundreds of futures. Hundreds of potential killers. A faint smile appeared. Then a new target was selected. Because Tyler Grant was never supposed to die. He was supposed to become an example. And the real experiment was only beginning. The words refused to leave Daniel Reyes' mind. To prove the machine right. For 2 days after speaking with Tyler Grant, he replayed the conversation repeatedly. Every detail mattered. Every word. Someone had contacted Tyler weeks before the attempted assassination. Someone who knew about Oracle. Someone who knew Tyler had been flagged. Someone who believed his future had already been decided. That fact terrified Reyes more than the shooting itself, because it suggested something larger than murder. It suggested belief. And belief, when combined with certainty, could become far more dangerous than violence. The Oracle Deaths Task Force expanded rapidly. What had begun as a small federal investigation was becoming a national security matter. The death count had reached 11. The attempted murder of Tyler Grant changed everything. For the first time, investigators possessed a living target. Someone who had survived. Someone who could help identify the people behind the operation. Tyler was transferred to a secure federal facility outside Denver. His location remained classified. Only a handful of agents knew where he was. If the killer discovered his whereabouts, another attack would almost certainly follow. Meanwhile, forensic analysts continued examining the fragment recovered from the highway shooting. The results were alarming. The paper stock matched printers located inside Cinex Dynamics headquarters. More specifically, it matched a secure research division that supposedly had no connection to Oracle's active prediction reports. The discovery created immediate tension. When confronted, Cinex executives denied wrongdoing. They insisted that hundreds of employees had access to those printers. The evidence was not enough to identify a suspect. Still, it was the first tangible link between the murders and the company that built Oracle, and Reyes intended to follow it. 3 days later he returned to Seattle. Rain covered the city in a gray haze. The massive Cinex campus looked unchanged. Employees moved between buildings. Security drones monitored parking lots. Executives attended meetings. Engineers reviewed data. Everything appeared normal. Yet somewhere inside this complex, someone was selecting targets. Someone was killing people, or ordering others to do it. The question was why. Dr. Evelyn Ward seemed increasingly nervous during their next meeting. She looked tired, more tired than before. The confident scientist who had unveiled Oracle to the world was slowly disappearing. Reyes noticed it immediately. "You haven't been sleeping." She forced a smile. "Neither have you. Probably for different reasons." The smile vanished. For several seconds she remained silent. Then she closed her office door. "Agent Reyes." Her voice dropped. "There's something you need to see." She led him into a restricted archive room. The space contained older project records. Most were disconnected from active systems. Physical files lined shelves along the walls. The site felt strangely old-fashioned inside one of the world's most advanced technology companies. Ward removed a thick folder, placed it on a table, and opened it. The date on the first page caught Reyes' attention. 7 years before Oracle's public launch. "What's this?" Ward took a deep breath. "The original project proposal." Reyes began reading. At first the document appeared familiar. Behavioral analysis, risk prediction, violence prevention, nothing unusual. Then he reached a section that had never been disclosed publicly. The title read, Phase 2, Behavioral Correction Model. He looked up. "What is this?" Ward didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stared at the folder, as if she regretted opening it. Finally, she spoke. "Oracle wasn't originally designed to predict future killers." A chill ran through Reyes. What was it designed to do? Ward's answer came quietly. "Create fewer of them." The room fell silent. Outside, rain struck the windows. Neither spoke for several moments. Then Reyes returned to the document. The deeper he read, the worse it became. Early versions of Oracle had not focused solely on prediction. Researchers wanted intervention, not merely identifying future violence, reducing it, preventing it. At first the proposals appeared harmless. Educational support, mental health resources, employment assistance, community outreach, programs intended to reduce risk factors. But later sections crossed a dangerous line. The system proposed actively shaping behavior, manipulating circumstances, altering social environments, influencing decisions. The objective was simple. If enough variables could be controlled, violent outcomes might disappear. In theory, the government approved this. Ward shook her head. "No." "What happened?" "The proposal was rejected." "Why?" She laughed bitterly. "Because nobody trusted an algorithm to decide how people's lives should be managed." Reyes understood immediately. Such a system would possess enormous power. Far too much. So the project ended. Ward looked away. "No." The answer sent another wave of unease through him. "What do you mean?" "Officially it ended." "And unofficially?" Ward hesitated, then spoke. "Some researchers believe the idea was too important to abandon." A photograph emerged from a folder. An old project team picture. Nearly 20 people stood together. Scientists, engineers, behavioral experts, data analysts. Most appeared young, ambitious, excited. Reyes examined the faces. One in particular caught his attention. A man standing beside Ward. Mid-40s. Sharp features. Cold eyes. Who is he? Ward immediately recognized the photograph. Her expression darkened. Dr. Marcus Voss. Former employee? She nodded. Former chief behavioral architect. Where is he now? Ward didn't answer. That silence told Reyes everything. You don't know. No one does. Marcus Voss had disappeared 6 years earlier. Officially, he resigned. Unofficially, the situation was far stranger. Personnel records showed no subsequent employment, no public appearances, no academic publications, no financial activity beyond a handful of transactions. The man had effectively vanished. Yet his fingerprints remained everywhere throughout Oracle's development. Many of the system's core behavioral models originated from his work, including some that remained classified. Reyes spent the next 12 hours reviewing Voss's history. The more he learned, the less he liked. Voss possessed extraordinary intelligence, but colleagues described him as obsessed. Obsessed with prediction, obsessed with patterns, obsessed with eliminating violence through data. Several former researchers recalled arguments, ethics disputes, warnings. One interview transcript contained a particularly disturbing quote. If we can identify future killers with certainty, society has a moral obligation to act. The statement was 6 years old, yet it suddenly felt very relevant. That night another death occurred. The 12th victim, a 40-year-old accountant in Chicago. Oracle had flagged him 17 days earlier. Now he was dead. The killing appeared professional, efficient, almost clinical. No signs of struggle, no witnesses, no mistakes. Someone was accelerating, and investigators were falling behind. Near midnight, Reyes returned to his hotel room. Exhaustion weighed heavily on him. He barely noticed the envelope waiting beneath the door. No postage, no return address, no identifying marks. His instincts immediately sharpened. Carefully, he opened it. Inside lay a single photograph. Nothing else. No message. No explanation. Only a photograph. The image showed a conference room. An old conference room. Inside sat several members of Oracle's original research team, including Evelyn Ward, including Marcus Voss, and including someone Reyes recognized instantly. His stomach tightened, because the third person in the photograph was not a scientist, not an engineer, not a researcher. The third person was a senior federal official currently overseeing the Oracle Deaths Task Force. Someone with unrestricted access to every classified prediction. Someone receiving daily updates about the murders. Someone directly involved in the investigation. For the first time, Reyes realized the leak might extend far beyond Synnex dynamics. The conspiracy might already be inside the government. And if that was true, he no longer knew whom he could trust. At that same moment, hundreds of miles away, Tyler Grant sat alone inside his protected room, unable to sleep, unable to understand why strangers wanted him dead. A television flickered silently in the corner. The hallway outside remained heavily guarded. Everything appeared secure, safe, controlled. Then Tyler noticed something strange. A folded note lying beneath his door. Someone had slipped it inside. Despite the guards, despite the cameras, despite federal protection. With trembling hands he opened it. Only 4 words were written on the paper. The message read, "Tomorrow you become proof." And somewhere in the darkness, someone was already preparing for the next stage of the experiment. Tyler Grant did not sleep that night. The note remained on the table beside his bed. For simple words, "Tomorrow you become proof." He read them dozens of times. Each reading made them feel more threatening, more deliberate. Someone had bypassed armed guards, surveillance cameras, biometric locks, and federal security procedures simply to leave a message. The implication was obvious. Whoever was behind the Oracle murders could reach him whenever they wanted. The question was why they hadn't killed him. Not yet. At dawn, Agent Daniel Reyes received an emergency call. Within minutes, he was aboard a government flight, heading toward Denver. Tyler's message had changed everything. The killer wasn't merely targeting Oracle's future murderers anymore. Now they were communicating, playing games, manipulating events. And that usually meant one thing: confidence. Dangerous confidence. The kind that develops when someone believes they are winning. When Reyes arrived at the secure facility, Tyler looked exhausted. Dark circles hung beneath his eyes. His hands trembled slightly. The previous week had destroyed any sense of normalcy he once possessed. First strangers watched him. Then someone tried to kill him. Now anonymous messages appeared inside supposedly secure federal buildings. The world no longer made sense. Reyes sat across from him, placed the note on the table. "What do you think it means?" Tyler stared at it. "I think whoever wrote it wants me scared." "Anything else?" A long pause followed. Then Tyler spoke quietly. "They don't want me dead." The answer surprised Reyes. "Why?" "Because they already had the chance." The room fell silent. Tyler was right. The highway attack could have ended differently. A trained shooter at close range rarely missed 3 times, especially when targeting a stationary vehicle. The attack had been designed to fail, or at least designed to allow survival. The realization disturbed Reyes. Every victim before Tyler had died quickly, efficiently, without warning. Yet Tyler had been spared, protected, almost preserved, as if his survival served a purpose. The question was what purpose? By noon, investigators had uncovered something new. Forensic analysis of the note revealed microscopic traces of printer toner. Not enough to identify a specific machine, but enough to establish its origin. The paper came from Synnex Dynamics. Again, the connection grew stronger. Every path eventually led back to Oracle's creators. Yet no direct evidence linked any employee to the murders. Someone remained several steps ahead. Meanwhile, Reyes began reviewing the files of every known victim. Not their deaths, their lives. For days he had focused on the killings themselves. Now he shifted attention elsewhere. He wanted to understand why Oracle had selected these individuals. And for the first time, a troubling pattern emerged. The victims weren't random. They came from different backgrounds, different states, different professions, different social classes. Yet they shared one hidden characteristic. Each had experienced a significant traumatic event within the previous 5 years. A divorce, a death, financial collapse, serious illness, loss, grief, isolation, pain. The pattern appeared repeatedly. Oracle wasn't identifying monsters. It was identifying damaged people. People standing at dangerous crossroads. People who might someday choose violence, but had not chosen it yet. That distinction mattered enormously, because it meant the victims were not killers. They were possibilities, potential futures. Nothing more, nothing less. And someone was executing them based on probabilities. Reyes suddenly understood the true horror of the situation. The murderer wasn't eliminating criminals. The murderer was eliminating risk. That evening another encrypted message arrived. This time it appeared on a secure FBI terminal. Again no sender. Again no trace. Only text. A single sentence. The machine predicts who they become. We stop them before they arrive. Several analysts interpreted it as a confession. Reyes disagreed. The message felt more like a manifesto. The words of someone who genuinely believed they were saving lives. Someone who viewed murder as prevention. Someone who no longer recognized the contradiction. Later that night, another development shook the investigation. One of Oracle's internal engineers disappeared. His name was Aaron Patel, 37 years old, senior systems specialist, employed by Synnex Dynamics for nearly a decade. Security footage showed him leaving work shortly before midnight. He never arrived home. His vehicle was discovered abandoned near Tacoma. No signs of struggle. No witnesses. Nothing. Just an empty car. And a missing engineer. The following morning his body was found. The news spread quickly through both Synnex and federal channels. Aaron Patel had been shot twice in the chest. Execution style. No robbery. No apparent motive. Unlike previous victims, Aaron had never appeared on Oracle's prediction lists. He wasn't a future killer. He was part of the system. That changed everything, because it suggested a new possibility. The murderer wasn't simply eliminating targets. They were eliminating threats. People who knew too much. Reyes immediately requested Aaron's personnel records. Most contained routine technical information. Then analysts discovered something unusual. 3 weeks before his death, Aaron had accessed archive project files related to Dr. Marcus Voss. Thousands of pages, dozens of classified documents. Hours of research. Something in those records had captured his attention, and now he was dead. The discovery sent investigators racing through Aaron's digital history. Most data had been wiped, professionally wiped, but one forensic specialist recovered a fragment of an encrypted file. The recovered text contained only part of a sentence, yet it was enough. Reyes read it 3 times. The correction program remains active despite official termination. That was all. The remainder was missing, destroyed, gone. But the implication was obvious. The behavioral correction project had never truly ended. Someone had continued it, somewhere, for years. That afternoon, Reyes finally confronted Evelyn Ward. The scientist looked horrified when he showed her the recovered document. "No," she whispered. "No, that's impossible." "Why?" "Because the program was dismantled." "Are you certain?" She hesitated, and that hesitation answered the question. "Not completely certain. Not anymore." For several minutes, neither spoke. Then Ward made a decision. A difficult one, possibly a dangerous one. There was another facility. Reyes looked up immediately. "What facility?" Ward swallowed. "A private research site." "Where?" She stared toward the window, as though ashamed of what she was about to reveal. "Northern Montana." "Who operated it?" "Marcus Voss." The name hung in the air, heavy, unavoidable. For weeks Voss had been a ghost, a shadow, a missing scientist. Now, for the first time, investigators had a destination, a place, a lead, something tangible. That night a federal warrant was approved. A team would travel to Montana. If the facility still existed, they would find it. If Voss was alive, they would locate him. And if the murders connected to the correction program, the truth might finally emerge. Hundreds of miles away, in a remote valley surrounded by mountains, a lone building stood beneath the darkness. The facility appeared abandoned, weathered by years of snow and wind, forgotten, silent, but appearances were deceptive. Deep below ground, hidden servers remained active. Lights blinked behind locked doors. Data flowed through secure networks, and in the center of it all stood a single man, Dr. Marcus Voss. Older now, gray-haired, thin, yet his eyes remained sharp, focused, certain. He studied a live feed showing Tyler Grant sitting alone in federal protection. Then he opened another file. A new Oracle assessment. A new future. A new life waiting to be judged. Voss smiled faintly, not because people were dying, but because the experiment was working. And soon the entire world would see the proof he had spent years preparing. The proof that would change everything humanity believed about free will. The flight to Montana departed before sunrise. Agent Daniel Reyes sat near the rear of the aircraft, studying photographs spread across a folding table. 12 dead, 1 survivor, 1 missing scientist, and a growing number of questions. Outside the window, the Rocky Mountains emerged through layers of cloud. Cold, vast, unforgiving. The perfect place to hide secrets. The facility described by Evelyn Ward did not appear on public maps. Officially, it had never existed. The land belonged to a shell corporation created years earlier by Synex Dynamics. Property records were buried beneath layers of legal paperwork. Ownership had changed repeatedly. The trail was deliberately confusing. Someone had worked very hard to ensure nobody would ever look there, which only increased Reyes's confidence that they were heading in the right direction. By noon, the FBI convoy reached the valley. Snow still lingered in shaded areas despite the season. Pine forests covered the surrounding slopes. The road narrowed as it climbed higher. Eventually the agents spotted the structure. An aging concrete complex sat against a mountainside. Its windows were dark, its exterior weathered. The place looked abandoned. Yet experience had taught Reyes something important. The most dangerous facilities rarely advertised their importance. The team approached cautiously. Armed agents secured the perimeter. Drones surveyed the area. Electronic specialists scanned for signals. Within minutes, they found something unexpected. The building was drawing power. Not much, but enough. Some systems were still running. Someone had maintained the site. The main entrance offered little resistance. The locks had been disengaged years earlier. Dust covered the reception area. Old furniture remained untouched. Everything suggested abandonment, until the agents reached the lower levels. There, beneath the facility, the illusion collapsed. The underground section looked almost new. Modern servers, communication equipment, backup generators, climate control systems. Someone had invested millions of dollars keeping the facility operational, and they had done so in complete secrecy. Reyes entered what appeared to be the main operations center. Rows of monitors lined the walls. Most displayed archived data, behavioral models, risk assessments, psychological projections. Oracle everywhere. The machine's fingerprints covered every screen. Then one analyst called out, "Agent Reyes." The urgency in his voice was unmistakable. Everyone gathered around a workstation. The analyst had opened a secure directory. Thousands of files filled the screen. Victim profiles, prediction histories, intervention reports, internal communications, years of hidden records. The evidence was staggering. As investigators copied the data, Reyes examined the oldest documents. The first files dated back nearly a decade, and they confirmed Evelyn Ward's fears. The behavioral correction program had never been terminated. It had merely gone underground. After the official cancellation, Marcus Voss and a small group of supporters had continued their work in secret. At first, the project appeared relatively harmless. Researchers monitored individuals identified as future high-risk offenders. They tracked their lives, studied outcomes, collected data. Nothing illegal, nothing shocking. Then the records changed. Several years into the project, the language became more aggressive. The term observation gradually disappeared. A new word replaced it. Intervention. Reyes opened report after report. The pattern became obvious. Researchers were no longer studying behavior. They were attempting to influence it, manipulate it, control it. The objective was simple. If violent outcomes could be predicted, perhaps they could also be prevented. The theory sounded noble. The implementation was terrifying. One report described a man predicted to commit a future homicide. Instead of arresting him, researchers quietly interfered with his life. They altered employment opportunities, redirected social services, influenced personal circumstances. 3 years later, the predicted murder never occurred. The project celebrated the result as a success. Then came another case, and another, each more ambitious than the last. At first glance, the statistics appeared remarkable. Predicted acts of violence declined. Projected homicides failed to occur. The program seemed effective, until Reyes discovered the hidden section. The section marked unintended consequences. His pulse quickened. Many interventions had produced devastating outcomes. People lost jobs. Families collapsed. Mental health deteriorated. Suicides increased. Several individuals became more unstable than before. One report described a man who had never exhibited violent tendencies until repeated interventions destroyed his financial stability. Another documented a woman who developed severe paranoia after being subjected to years of covert monitoring. The pattern was unmistakable. The program often created the very risks it claimed to prevent. Then Reyes found something worse, a document written by Marcus Voss himself. The title read, "The Self-Fulfilling Trajectory Hypothesis." He began reading. By the third page, the room felt colder. Voss argued that predictions themselves could alter outcomes. The moment a person became the subject of intervention, their future changed. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse, but never remained untouched. The observer influenced the observed. The prediction influenced reality, exactly as the anonymous messages had suggested. Hours later, investigators uncovered a hidden archive. The files were heavily encrypted. It took specialists nearly 2 hours to gain access. When they finally succeeded, silence filled the room. Every agent stared at the screen. No one spoke. The directory contained hundreds of names, each marked with one of 3 classifications: monitor, intervene, remove. Reyes felt his stomach tighten. Slowly, he opened the list. 12 names were marked remove. All 12 matched the murder victims. The room became deathly quiet. For the first time, investigators possessed direct evidence connecting the killings to the program. The victims had not been chosen randomly. Someone had selected them, deliberately, systematically, and documented the decisions. But the discovery raised an even larger question. Who had authorized the removals? Reyes searched for approval records. Every file contained digital signatures. Most belonged to aliases, false identities, encrypted credentials. Yet one signature appeared repeatedly. The same authorization code appeared on every removal order. MV. Marcus Voss. The evidence seemed overwhelming. Too overwhelming. Reyes stared at the screen. Something felt wrong. A man intelligent enough to hide for years would not leave such obvious fingerprints. Not everywhere. Not on every file. The setup felt almost deliberate, as though someone wanted investigators to reach a specific conclusion. The thought lingered in the back of his mind. Then a communications specialist rushed into the room. Agent Reyes. The man's face had gone pale. We found active transmissions. What kind? They're recent. How recent? The specialist swallowed. Minutes. The entire room froze. Minutes. Someone had been connected to the facility while the FBI searched it. Someone had been watching. Technicians immediately traced the signal. The results shocked everyone. The transmission did not originate from Montana, nor from Seattle, nor from any hidden location. It originated from Washington, D.C., specifically from a government network, a highly restricted government network, one accessible only to senior officials. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Reyes remembered the photograph left in his hotel room, the one showing Marcus Voss standing beside a federal official, the same official currently overseeing the Oracle Deaths Task Force, the same official receiving classified updates every day, the same official with unrestricted access to prediction reports. Deputy Director Richard Holloway. The realization struck like a physical blow. If Holloway was involved, the conspiracy reached the highest levels of government. Every report, every briefing, every strategy meeting could already be compromised. The investigation itself might have been manipulated from the beginning. That evening, Reyes ordered a complete extraction of all recovered data. The Montana facility was secured. Evidence teams remained behind. Federal prosecutors were notified. And for the first time since the investigation began, investigators believed they were finally approaching the truth. They were wrong, because one final file remained unopened, buried deep within the recovered archives, hidden behind multiple layers of encryption. A file labeled Phase 3. Several hours later, after specialists finally broke through the security protections, Reyes opened the document. The first sentence made his blood run cold. He read it once, then again, unable to believe what he was seeing. The document stated, Objective: demonstrate that free will is statistically insignificant when compared to predictive certainty. Below the sentence appeared a list, not of victims, not of suspects, but of planned demonstrations, public demonstrations, large-scale demonstrations, designed to prove the theory to the world. At the very top of the list was a date, only 9 days away, and next to that date appeared a projected death toll. 37 people. Someone was no longer conducting experiments. Someone was preparing a massacre. And according to the files, Tyler Grant was meant to play the central role. For several seconds after reading the document, nobody in the operations room spoke. 37 projected deaths. 9 days remaining. And at the center of the plan stood Tyler Grant, the man whom Oracle had identified as a future killer, the man who had survived an assassination attempt, the man someone desperately wanted alive. Until now. Daniel Reyes reread the document 3 times. Each pass revealed new details. Phase 3 was not a conventional terrorist attack, nor was it simply another murder. It was designed as a demonstration, a proof, a public event intended to validate a theory Marcus Voss had spent years developing. The theory that free will was an illusion. The human behavior could be predicted with such accuracy that individual choice became statistically irrelevant. According to the documents, Voss intended to prove it by forcing reality to match Oracle's forecasts. No matter the cost, the deeper investigators dug, the clearer the plan became. Years earlier, Oracle had generated thousands of long-term behavioral projections. Most remained classified. Some involved financial crimes. Others predicted assaults, kidnappings, or murders. Among the most significant cases was Tyler Grant. His profile contained one of the strongest predictive scores the system had ever produced. According to Oracle's original projection, Tyler would eventually commit a mass shooting after a sequence of personal tragedies and escalating psychological stress. The projected event would occur approximately 18 months in the future. Estimated fatalities, 37. At least that was the prediction. The horrifying part was what came next. Phase 3 intended to make it happen now. The room fell silent as analysts processed the implications. Someone had spent years studying Tyler's life, tracking him, manipulating circumstances around him, not merely observing, engineering, building pressure, shaping outcomes, creating conditions intended to transform a prediction into reality. Jesus Christ. One analyst leaned back from his monitor. They're manufacturing the future. No one disagreed. By the time Reyes returned to Washington, the task force had transformed into a full-scale federal operation. Resources poured in. Intelligence agencies became involved. Cybercrime divisions joined the investigation. Court orders were signed around the clock. The government no longer viewed the situation as a series of murders. It was now considered an imminent mass casualty threat. Tyler Grant remained under protection. Yet even that protection felt increasingly fragile. The deeper investigators looked into his history, the more disturbing the pattern became. Events that once appeared random no longer seemed random at all. The death of his sister, a failed business opportunity, a terminated promotion, a broken engagement years earlier before his marriage, a denied loan application, several unexplained encounters with law enforcement. Individually, each event seemed ordinary. Together, they formed something else. A chain. A carefully constructed chain. Forensic analysts traced dozens of those events back to people connected to the correction program. Some had unknowingly followed recommendations generated by Oracle. Others appear to have acted deliberately. Small interventions, tiny adjustments, each insignificant on its own. But over years, those adjustments altered the trajectory of Tyler's life. Exactly as Voss's theory predicted, the discovery horrified Reyes, because it meant Tyler had never been entirely free. His future had been shaped by invisible hands, not controlled completely, but influenced, guided, steered, and nobody had informed him. When Reyes finally revealed part of the truth, Tyler sat motionless. The secure interview room felt unusually quiet. The young man stared at the documents spread across the table, his own life reduced to charts, reports, behavioral assessments, probability scores. I've never met these people. His voice barely rose above a whisper. Reyes nodded. I know. They made decisions about me anyway. Another nod. Tyler looked at him. For the first time, genuine anger appeared. Not fear. Not confusion. Anger. They decided who I was supposed to become. Reyes understood the reaction, because he felt something similar. The entire premise violated something fundamental. The idea that human beings should determine their own futures. Not algorithms. Not secret researchers. Not self-appointed guardians. The assault began at 4:17 in the morning. Darkness still covered the Wyoming mountains when federal helicopters crossed the ridgeline. Below them, hidden among forests and rocky slopes, stood the compound. For months it had existed unnoticed, a place where Marcus Voss continued a project the world believed had been abandoned years earlier. Now dozens of agents were closing in, and everyone knew one thing. This might be their last chance. Daniel Reyes sat inside the lead helicopter, studying satellite images illuminated by red cabin lights. The compound appeared smaller than expected. Several buildings, storage facilities, communication towers, a central operations structure. Nothing extraordinary, yet intelligence reports suggested otherwise. The site contained encrypted servers, research archives, and potentially dozens of people connected to the correction program. Most importantly, Marcus Voss himself might be there. For the first time in weeks, the investigation had a face, a target, a destination. The helicopters reached position. Ground teams moved simultaneously. Within seconds, tactical units breached the perimeter. The operation unfolded with remarkable speed. No gunfire, no resistance, no alarms. The silence immediately worried Reyes, because criminals usually fought or ran. The compound did neither. The first buildings were empty. The second building was empty. The third. Empty. The fourth. Empty. Every room appeared abandoned. Computers remained powered down. Documents had vanished. Storage drives were missing. The entire facility looked as though it had been evacuated hours earlier. Not days. Hours. Someone had known they were coming. Reyes already knew who had provided the warning. Richard Holloway. Even after disappearing, the former deputy director remained useful to Voss. The leak had likely reached the compound long before federal agents arrived. By sunrise, investigators found only a handful of staff members. Most were technicians, researchers, data analysts. None possessed decision-making authority. None knew where Voss had gone. At least that was what they claimed. Some seemed genuinely terrified. Others appeared almost relieved, as though they had been waiting for the operation to end. Meanwhile, back in Colorado, Tyler Grant remained under protection. The message from Voss refused to leave his thoughts. You deserve to know the truth about your sister. For years he had accepted the official explanation. A drunk driver crossed a center line. A collision followed. His sister died instantly. A tragic accident. Nothing more. At least that was what the police report said. Now Tyler wasn't sure. When Reyes finally contacted him through a secure video link, Tyler asked the question immediately. Was it really an accident? Reyes hesitated. That hesitation was enough. Tyler's stomach tightened. What did you find? For several seconds Reyes remained silent. Then he answered. We found records. Tyler's face drained of color. What kind of records? Correction program records. The room became very quiet. Investigators examining Wyoming servers had uncovered archived intervention reports connected to Tyler. Thousands of pages. Years of data. And among those files was something unexpected. A document dating back nearly 7 years. 1 year before his sister's death. The report identified Tyler as a developing high-risk subject. Not high enough for active intervention, but high enough for observation. Researchers had begun studying him, monitoring him, tracking him. Years before he ever knew Oracle existed. The file included psychological projections, behavioral forecasts, potential future outcomes, and one conclusion appeared repeatedly. Tyler's sister acted as a stabilizing influence. According to Oracle's models, her presence significantly reduced his long-term risk of future violence. Without her, the risk increased dramatically. Tyler felt cold. Tell me the rest. Reyes wished he didn't have to, but there was no point hiding the truth. We found communications between Voss and his team. Tyler stared at the screen, waiting, dreading. Your sister wasn't targeted. The relief lasted less than a second. Then what happened? Reyes looked down at the report. One of the program's interventions indirectly affected the drunk driver who hit her. Silence. Absolute silence. The driver had been another monitored subject. Years earlier, researchers manipulated aspects of his employment and financial circumstances as part of an experimental behavioral study. The intervention produced severe stress. Alcohol abuse followed. Then addiction. Then the crash. No one intended Tyler's sister to die. No one planned the collision. Yet the program had contributed to the chain of events that made it possible. A butterfly effect measured in blood. Tyler sat motionless. For several minutes he couldn't speak. The grief he had carried for years suddenly transformed into something darker, something sharper. Because tragedy was one thing. Experimentation was another. His sister had become collateral damage. A consequence. A variable. A statistic. In Wyoming, investigators continued searching the compound. Near midday, they finally found something important. A hidden server vault beneath the main structure. Unlike the rest of the facility, this section remained active. Rows of machines hummed behind reinforced doors. Someone had left them running intentionally. Digital specialists immediately began extracting data. The discovery proved enormous. Not because of what the servers contained, but because of what they revealed. Marcus Voss had not been working alone. Not even close. The correction program included dozens of participants. Researchers, government officials, behavioral scientists, private contractors, psychologists, data specialists. Some had knowingly supported the project. Others believed they were contributing to crime prevention research. Many never realized how far Voss had gone. The network stretched across multiple states, multiple agencies, multiple institutions, far larger than investigators imagined. Then another file appeared, a video recording, time-stamped only 6 hours earlier. Marcus Voss himself sat before the camera, older, thinner, calm, very calm, as though he expected the recording to be viewed. The room gathered around the screen. Reyes watched carefully. Voss looked directly into the lens, directly at them. "By the time you see this, I will be gone." His voice sounded measured, controlled, not the voice of a fanatic, the voice of a man convinced he was correct. The deaths upset you because you focus on methods instead of outcomes. Several agents exchanged uneasy glances. Voss continued, "For decades society accepted murder as inevitable. We built prisons. We punished offenders. We mourned victims." He leaned forward. "Oracle gave us something humanity never possessed before. Foreknowledge." The recording continued. "Your investigation assumes prediction should not influence action." A faint smile appeared. "Then what is the purpose of prediction?" No one answered. The video played on. "If you know a bridge will collapse tomorrow, do you wait for the collapse? If you know a disease will kill a patient, do you wait for death? If you know a future murderer will eventually act, what moral obligation do you possess?" Reyes felt anger rising. The argument sounded persuasive on the surface, until one remembered the victims, people who had committed no crimes, people who still possessed choices, possibilities, human beings, not equations. Then Voss said something unexpected, something that changed everything. "The greatest misunderstanding in this investigation concerns Tyler Grant." The room became still. Everyone listened. Tyler was never selected because he was dangerous. Voss's expression hardened. He was selected because Oracle was wrong. For the first time, genuine surprise spread through the room. Voss continued, "After years of refinement, Tyler became the first major prediction failure." Reyes froze. The statement contradicted everything. According to Voss, Oracle originally projected Tyler would become a killer. Years later, updated models changed. The system revised its conclusion. The risk declined, then declined again, and again. Eventually Tyler no longer fit the prediction. He was changing, healing, recovering, moving away from violence, away from the future Oracle once expected. The room fell silent. No one understood. Why target Tyler then? Why build Phase 3 around him? Why keep him alive? Voss answered before anyone could ask. Tyler proves something more important than predictive certainty. His eyes seemed fixed directly on Reyes. As long as he remains alive, he proves people can change. A pause followed. Then came the final sentence. The sentence that left the room speechless. "And that is precisely why someone else wants him dead." The video ended. For several seconds nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The implications were staggering. Everything investigators believed suddenly shifted. If Voss was telling the truth, then the murders were not merely about proving Oracle right. Someone else had taken control. Someone who viewed Tyler as a threat, a living contradiction, a man whose existence undermined the entire theory. Late that evening, analysts discovered one final piece of information hidden inside the recovered files. A location, a meeting location, scheduled for the following day. An abandoned industrial district outside Chicago. According to the records, Marcus Voss intended to meet someone there. Someone identified only by initials. R.H. Richard Holloway, the fugitive former deputy director, the man who had betrayed the investigation, the man who now appeared to be running Phase 3. And if the files were accurate, the countdown to the massacre had entered its final stage. Only 4 days remained. 4 days. That was all the time remaining. 4 days before the event described in Phase 3. 4 days before a projected death toll of 37 people. 4 days before years of secret experimentation could culminate in a public catastrophe. For Daniel Reyes, the investigation had become a race against the clock. And now, for the first time, he knew exactly where to look. The abandoned industrial district sat on the southern edge of Chicago. Once it had housed steel processing facilities and freight terminals. Now most of the buildings stood empty. Rust-covered machinery, Broken windows overlooked deserted streets. Entire blocks appeared forgotten. It was the perfect place for a clandestine meeting. The perfect place for an ambush. Federal teams arrived hours before dawn. Surveillance positions were established. Drones monitored the area from above. Sniper teams occupied nearby rooftops. Every possible escape route was covered. No mistakes. No surprises. At least that was the plan. Daniel Reyes watched from a mobile command center several blocks away. The target location was a warehouse near an abandoned rail yard. According to recovered files, Marcus Voss and Richard Holloway were supposed to meet there shortly after sunset. If the intelligence was accurate, investigators would finally have both men, the architect and the traitor, the two figures who had haunted the case from the beginning. As the hours passed, tension increased. Every vehicle entering the area was monitored, every pedestrian identified, every movement analyzed. Yet nothing happened. The warehouse remained silent, empty, still. Then, shortly after 7 p.m., a black sedan entered the district. Agents immediately focused on the vehicle. It slowed near the warehouse. Stopped. A man exited. Even from a distance, Reyes recognized him. Richard Holloway. The former deputy director looked different from the photographs. Older, more tired, less confident. But there was no doubt. The fugitive had arrived. And he had arrived alone. Agents prepared to move. Reyes stopped them. Wait. The command surprised several officers. But Reyes had a reason. If Voss was coming, he wanted both men. Not just one. 20 minutes later, a second vehicle appeared. A gray pickup truck. It approached slowly. Stopped near the warehouse. The driver stepped out. Marcus Voss. For weeks he had been a ghost. A myth. A shadow moving behind the murders. Now he stood in plain sight. An aging scientist beneath fading industrial lights. The man who had spent years trying to predict the future. The two men entered the warehouse. Reyes waited 30 seconds. Then gave the order. Go. Federal teams moved instantly. Vehicles surged forward. Agents surrounded the building. Doors were breached. Commands echoed through the darkness. FBI. Hands where we can see them. The operation unfolded with textbook precision. Within moments, officers secured the structure. No shots fired. No resistance. No escape. But when Reyes entered the warehouse, he immediately sensed something was wrong. Voss and Holloway were sitting at opposite ends of a metal table. Neither appeared surprised. Neither attempted to flee. Neither looked afraid. Instead, they looked as though they had been expecting him. Reyes approached cautiously. What is this? Neither man answered immediately. Then Holloway smiled. A tired smile. Not triumphant. Almost resigned. You're late. The response irritated Reyes. You murdered 12 people. No. The answer came from Voss. The scientist's voice remained calm. Richard did. The room froze. Even Holloway seemed surprised. For several seconds nobody spoke. Then Reyes looked at Holloway. The former deputy director stared at Voss. Disbelief flashed across his face. You arrogant bastard. Voss said nothing. Holloway laughed bitterly. A broken laugh. The kind produced when years of lies finally collapse. Then Holloway spoke. And everything changed. It started exactly as he told you. He nodded toward Voss. The correction program was real. Oracle was real. The research was real. His expression hardened. But the killings were never part of the original plan. For years, Holloway explained, he genuinely believed the project could save lives. Oracle identified risk. Researchers intervened. Violence decreased. The results appeared promising. Not perfect, but promising. Then came the failures. The unintended consequences, collateral damage, the realization that interventions sometimes created new problems. Many researchers wanted to stop. Some did stop. Others walked away. Marcus Voss included. Reyes frowned. What do you mean? Holloway looked directly at him. Marcus abandoned the project 3 years ago. The room fell silent. The statement seemed impossible. Every piece of evidence pointed toward Voss. Every file. Every signature, every authorization, everything. Voss finally spoke. Because Richard put it there. Holloway closed his eyes. For a moment he looked exhausted. Then he nodded. A confession. Years earlier, Voss had reached a conclusion that shattered his beliefs. The data revealed something unexpected. Human beings changed. Far more than Oracle predicted. Recovery occurred. Growth occurred. Redemption occurred. People routinely escaped futures that algorithms considered likely. The system remained useful, but it was not destiny. For Voss, that realization ended the experiment. For Holloway, it had the opposite effect. He couldn't accept uncertainty. Voss's voice remained quiet. He needed certainty. Holloway laughed again. This time there was bitterness behind it, because certainty saves lives. Then he looked directly at Reyes. Do you know what it feels like to read reports describing murders before they happen? No one answered. To know who will become violent. To know who will destroy lives. To know who will kill children? His voice rose, emotion finally breaking through years of restraint. And then do nothing. Silence followed. Heavy silence. The silence of impossible questions. Holloway continued. When Marcus walked away, I couldn't. His eyes drifted toward the warehouse floor. I kept looking. I kept reading. And eventually I realized something. He smiled sadly. The machine wasn't perfect. But it was usually right. That belief became obsession, then ideology, then justification. At first Holloway only monitored subjects. Later he interfered. Eventually he authorized removals. The word sounded clinical, almost harmless. But everyone in the room knew what it meant. Murder. 12 murders. 12 lives ended because probabilities had become verdicts. Then Reyes asked the question that mattered most. What about Phase 3? For the first time, genuine tension appeared. Even Voss looked uneasy. Holloway's expression changed. Not guilt. Not shame. Something worse. Conviction. Phase 3 proves the final point. His eyes locked onto Reyes. People don't want freedom. They want safety. Then he revealed the truth. The planned massacre was real. The target was real. The 37 projected deaths were real. But Tyler Grant was never meant to carry it out. The event had been engineered by Holloway himself. A coordinated attack involving several radicalized followers recruited from the Correction Program Network. The casualties would occur exactly as Oracle originally predicted. Same location. Same number, same outcome. Afterward, Holloway intended to reveal the prediction, publicly, to the entire world. The message would be simple. Oracle knew. Oracle warned us. And society ignored it. Fear would do the rest. Governments would demand more surveillance, more monitoring, more predictive systems, more authority, more control. Everything Holloway believed necessary. The massacre was not the end. It was a demonstration. Reyes felt sick, because the plan might actually work. Not the attack, the aftermath, the fear, the politics, the public reaction. Then Voss quietly added one final detail. The attack begins tomorrow. The room exploded into motion. Agents immediately started issuing orders. Phones appeared. Command centers activated. Emergency alerts spread across multiple agencies. Tomorrow. Not 4 days. Tomorrow. The countdown had been shortened. As officers moved to arrest Holloway, the former deputy director offered no resistance. He simply sat there, watching, almost relieved. But before agents could remove him, a communications officer burst into the warehouse. Pale, breathing hard, terrified. Agent Reyes. Something in the man's voice froze the room. What is it? The officer swallowed. We just lost contact with Tyler Grant. Every sound seemed to disappear. The officer continued. The protection team is dead. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then came the final sentence. And security footage shows Tyler left with Marcus Voss 3 hours ago. Every head turned toward Voss. The scientist stared back in complete disbelief, because he had not seen Tyler in weeks, which meant someone had stolen Tyler. Someone who knew exactly how federal protection worked. Someone who knew the investigation. Someone who knew the attack plan. And somewhere, in the final hours before the massacre, Tyler Grant had vanished. For a moment, nobody in the warehouse moved. The revelation struck harder than any confession. Tyler Grant was gone. His protection team was dead. And the disappearance had occurred while every available federal resource was focused on capturing Marcus Voss and Richard Holloway. Someone had used the investigation itself as a distraction. Daniel Reyes immediately understood the implication. The final phase was already underway. Not tomorrow. Not in a few hours. Now, within minutes, federal agencies across the country entered crisis mode. Every available lead was pursued. Every camera network was searched. Every vehicle connected to Tyler's disappearance was flagged. The operation became the largest manhunt in recent memory. And still, Tyler remained invisible. Meanwhile, Holloway sat handcuffed inside a secure transport vehicle. For the first time since his arrest, he looked genuinely worried. Not about prison. Not about the murders. About something else. Something larger. Reyes entered the vehicle. Where is he? Holloway remained silent. 37 people are going to die. Still silence. Tell me where Tyler is. Finally, Holloway spoke. You still don't understand. Reyes clenched his jaw. Then explain it. Holloway looked out the window. The attack doesn't require Tyler. The answer sent a chill through Reyes. Then why take him? A faint smile appeared. Not triumphant. Almost sad. Because Tyler is the most dangerous person in the country. Reyes stared at him. The man has never committed a violent crime. Exactly. The smile widened. That's why he's dangerous. For years, Holloway had built his ideology around predictive certainty. The belief that violent futures could be identified, managed, controlled, prevented. Then came Tyler, a man whom Oracle once predicted would become a killer. A man whose life had been shaped by tragedy, manipulation, loss, grief. Yet despite everything, Tyler had moved away from violence, away from hatred, away from the future that statistics expected. He represented something Holloway could never accept. Uncertainty, human choice, free will. Tyler wasn't evidence that Oracle worked. He was evidence that Oracle could be wrong. And if society learned that truth, everything Holloway believed would collapse. Back in Washington, analysts finally discovered the first breakthrough. A traffic camera. Then another. Then a third. A vehicle connected to Tyler's kidnapping appeared heading toward northern Illinois. Toward Chicago. Toward the planned attack zone. The timing could not be coincidence. Federal teams immediately mobilized. Roadblocks appeared. Air support launched. Tactical units moved into position. The race had begun. Hours later, investigators identified the final target. Not a government building. Not a military installation. A convention center. Thousands of people were expected to attend a national technology conference. Executives, researchers, politicians, journalists, industry leaders. The symbolism was obvious. A massacre that would dominate headlines worldwide. And afterward, Holloway intended to reveal Oracle's prediction records. The public would see that the event had been forecast in advance. Exactly as planned. Fear would spread. Trust would vanish. And demands for predictive control would explode. It was a nightmare scenario. As dawn approached, tactical teams surrounded the convention center. Bomb squads searched entrances. Security personnel evacuated nearby buildings. Emergency services flooded the area. Yet Tyler remained missing. And then, at 6:12 a.m., a call reached Daniel Reyes. The caller ID displayed an unknown number. Reyes answered immediately. Silence greeted him. Then a familiar voice. Tyler Grant. Daniel. Relief surged through him. Tyler, where are you? A pause. They brought me here. Background noise echoed through the connection. Metal doors. Voices. Machinery. Who brought you? Another pause. People who work for Holloway. Reyes signaled analysts to trace the call. Listen carefully, he said. Can you get out? No. The answer came calmly. Far too calmly. Then Tyler said something unexpected. But I know where the attack starts. Reyes froze. What? They told me everything. The kidnappers believed Tyler was broken, defeated, converted. Instead, he listened, watched, remembered, for hours. Now he began describing the location, the vehicles, the participants, the equipment, every detail. Analysts rapidly compared the information against intelligence databases. Within minutes, they found a match. an abandoned freight terminal near the Chicago River, the true staging area, not the convention center itself. The attackers were gathering there before deployment. Federal units moved immediately. The operation lasted less than 20 minutes. When it ended, 13 conspirators were in custody. Explosives were recovered, weapons seized, vehicles confiscated. The planned attack collapsed before it could begin. For the first time since Oracle generated its prediction, the future changed completely. Several hours later, agents located Tyler, alive, exhausted, but alive. The reunion with Reyes occurred inside a temporary command center. Neither man spoke immediately. The last few weeks had changed both of them. Finally, Reyes broke the silence. "It's over." Tyler looked down. "No." The answer surprised him. "What do you mean?" Tyler stared through the window, at the city beyond, at ordinary people living ordinary lives. "The attack is over." A pause. "But this won't be." Reyes understood. The technology existed. The data existed. The temptation existed. Someone else would eventually try again. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not next year. But someday. The question would return. How much freedom should society sacrifice for safety? And no algorithm could answer it. Months later, congressional hearings exposed the correction program, the murders, the cover-ups, the secret interventions, everything. Marcus Voss testified voluntarily. Richard Holloway spent the remainder of his life in federal prison. Dozens of collaborators faced prosecution. Others disappeared from public life forever. Oracle itself survived, but in a radically different form. Independent oversight was introduced. Strict limitations were imposed. Predictive assessments could no longer be used to justify covert intervention, or punishment, or surveillance without cause. The system remained a tool. Nothing more. Nothing less. A year later, Tyler Grant stood beside his sister's grave. The wind moved gently through the cemetery. For the first time in years, he felt peace. Not because he had received answers. Some questions would never be fully answered. But because he finally understood something important. The future had never belonged to Oracle. It had never belonged to Marcus Voss. It had never belonged to Richard Holloway. It belonged to the people living it. He looked toward the horizon, toward possibilities still unwritten, toward choices not yet made. Years earlier, a machine had predicted he would become a killer. The prediction had seemed almost inevitable. Statistics supported it. Data supported it. Experts supported it. Yet none of those things mattered. Because in the end, the most important variable in the equation was the one no system had ever fully mastered. A human being. And sometimes a single decision is enough to rewrite an entire future. Far away, inside a government archive, the final Oracle report, connected to Tyler Grant, remained stored under restricted access. The file had never been deleted, only closed. At the bottom of the report appeared a final notation added after the investigation concluded. Original prediction, confirmed failure. Reason, subject exercised independent choice contrary to projected behavioral pathway. Conclusion, future remains probabilistic, not predetermined. For years, researchers debated the meaning of those words. Some considered them a limitation. Others considered them a warning. A few considered them the most hopeful conclusion ever produced by artificial intelligence. Because despite all the data ever collected, despite every model ever built, despite every prediction ever generated, the future remained unwritten. The end.